Hi, all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in.
Now, herbs and fruits and ferments? Oh my. Creativity, when allowed room to flourish, often bubbles up in unexpected ways. It may even transform, ferment, if you will, and take a person in a whole new direction. That's what happened to Zachary Smith in the middle of a career in restaurant management when he started experimenting with preserving fruit in the back of his fridge. Now he's the creator and owner of Dalai Sophia Ferments in Charleston, South Carolina, a small but mighty beverage company that makes the best kombucha I've ever tasted. I mean, there's a quote of Alton Brown saying the exact same thing on Zach's website, but since this is the Southern Fork, I'm going to go with me. But beyond quote attribution, the reason why. It's because in each can, there's a complexity, a layering of flavors with ingredients sourced locally and manipulated with a deft hand. Kombucha is a relatively new word in the lexicon for Southerners, so don't worry, we start at the beginning. But for Dalai Sophia, I predict we ain't seen nothing yet. Welcome to the Southern Fork, Zach.
Hey, how are you, Stephanie?
Oh, well, I've been better because I thought I was going to be able to visit with you today and actually come to the warehouse and sip some kombucha while we had our chat. But rain and flooding, that kind of thing. And then adding up big spike in virus cases, and you were kind enough to say we could do this via phone. So I really appreciate that.
Yes, no, I appreciate you having me on. And I guess we have to do the right thing and continue to stay distanced.
Yes. And even though I have a socially distant microphone contraption, I just wasn't sure. We hadn't really talked about it very much. And so this was the safe way today. But we're not here to talk about my beautiful phone app or the virus. We're here to talk about kombucha and how in the world that captured your imagination enough to start this company and then capture my imagination enough to talk to you about it. So, can you tell me the first time you had kombucha and what you thought? Because a lot of people have a different reaction than how they eventually like it.
Yeah, indeed. It's something that I feel most of the market is you really have to kind of acclimate to the flavor profile or the tartness or the vinegar style. But I had no idea that I was drinking kombucha. It had to be, I want to say about 10 years ago, out on an island in the Caribbean, St. John. And I was informed by a brewer out of Colorado that happened to be swinging through the islands and hanging out. And he was like, this is really one of the better kombuchas that I've ever tried. I had no idea what he was talking about.
Cool.
Yep.
And just because even though
a lot of people might not know what kombucha is, even though it's really taken, I would say, American culture by storm. Can you just generally explain what kombucha is and why it's enjoyable and also good to drink?
Historically, I mean, there's a lot of information outside of Western medicine that really kind of points towards fermented beverages being such a healthy component of different cultures. But literally, it's almost, if you kind of can imagine a sourdough starter or something where it has a culture of bacteria and yeast that basically you're feeding it with with tea, and the yeast ends up eating sugar. So it's just like creating alcohol. But the bacteria that's involved creates almost like a culture, an enzyme at the top referred to as a SCOBY, where the yeast eats the sugar, it creates alcohol, and the bacteria eats the alcohol and creates a gluconic and glucuronic acid, which is the tart, almost vinegar, kind of falling off the side of your palate or falling off the side of your tongue, almost taste buds with the tartness.
Well, the SCOBY is, pretty well known there, as far as like, if you're Southern and you happen to leave a pitcher of sweet tea in the back of your fridge, just the dregs of it for a long, long time, right? You're liable to sometimes even get something in there that looks a little gelatinous, and it looks a little bit like, I don't know, a flying saucer perhaps. And that can be a SCOBY, right? And
yes, indeed.
That's kind of how it starts. And then you feed that. But, these kind of fermented, we're really, I would say, in a golden age of fermentation here in the U.S. right now. People are getting really excited about it. Things like kimchi, probiotics, and kombucha and sourdough. After you took that first sip of that kombucha, when did you start playing with it? You bartended briefly at Fig, so you definitely have that bartender's palate, which is what I think makes your kombucha so special. But when did you really start playing with it as a product?
Definitely, kind of the accident, the back of the refrigerator style jar, and yeah, again, that was on St. John when I was just using it like a preservation method, where some of the West Indian locals, they were using it just to basically preserve like mangoes and papayas and things of the sort. So it was just bush tea and sugar cane, and we were just preserving fruit. And that's when the Colorado brewer was like, "Hey, man, this is kombucha." And
and
so
you were like, "Cool."
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what that is, my friend. And he was, but it was kind of cool. But and then back to Fig real quick. When I moved back from St. John, I had been in the restaurant industry for, I would say 20 or so years, but I was fascinated with how well they just operated at Fig. And it was kind of like, going into Narnia or something. I was well too old to go in and apply for a service position. I say that off bat. I mean, it's, they're such a professional crew. I mean, you're never too old to do it. But yeah, I bussed tables, I waited tables, I ran food. I loved absolutely every part of Fig. And working with Jason Stanhope, Morgan, the general manager, they're phenomenal. So yeah, that professionalism really led me into the ability to get my business up and started. But yeah, a complete accident on the kombucha side, but absolutely love the beverage making altogether.
One thing that I really love about your kombucha is that it's not super sweet. I think a lot of Southern kombucha producers lots of times can add a little too much sugar because Southern palates are, we like the sweet stuff. So how do you decide on a new flavor? Can you give us a little bit about the creative process that you come into? Because your profiles are, we're going to talk a little bit about my favorite one, which is actually this time of year available. But before we get into the specific ones, can you talk a little bit about how you choose the next thing, recipe development? Do you play around with it? Do you write something down? Do you get an idea? I think a lot of Southern Fork listeners are interested in that creative process. You know, how do you come up with something new like that?
I honestly, if I taste something and I truly like it, I'll find a farm that's doing it, try to get the produce as fresh as possible, and maybe find a component that's off the beaten path that's also good, extremely good for you. Say like a milk thistle or a rose water, or there's so many things out there with invasive weeds, herbs, spices that are just like crazy good for you. And the vinegar like state of kombucha, it's almost like a bone broth. I think where people are making their mistake on the sweet factor, your sugar should be fermented out of the product. The only fructose and glucose left will be what you use from I hear a lot of people juicing using a lot of fruit juices or extracts or anything like that, but the bottom line is just treat kombucha like a vinegar and steep whatever flavors you want in it, almost like you're making a sangria. So
gotcha. I love that because
yeah,
that's the original method you had with the bush tea, that preserving
exactly.
of the fruit. Yeah. So you were like, I'm sticking with this. If the Colorado man says it's good, I'm going to stick with this method. But, and I'm also hearing that you do a lot of research and reading. You have to be pretty knowledgeable about what flavors go together, but also the health benefits of
Absolutely.
some things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the bartending days, like a peach, what is, the drink that they drink at the Derby, the juleps, the, peach
Yeah.
juleps, or actually, a mint julep, but, the peach julep was one of the first ones written about in some cocktail book that I picked up probably 20 years ago. And, it was talking about coming into the ports right around Savannah and Charleston with, a peach brandy that was what they referred to as a julep. But weird and wonderful stuff. Even like the label, I kind of acclimate that. It looks like a Campari or an Aperol bottle.
That's why I kind of like it.
And yeah, it's just going to be like 25 years of bartending. Even the first glass bottles I had, it reminded me of like a Mickey's fine malt liquor, one of my favorite beers from 20 years ago. But yeah, so just silly little tidbits that I creativity wise is just I guess just a lifetime of information that
What's so lovely about the kombucha and the different flavors is I would say a sophistication level. They're not too sweet, but they also are complex. And I think that comes from the first time I sipped one, I think it was at oh my goodness, the West Ashley Farmers Market, perhaps.
yeah,
When you were selling beside Root Baking. I think Root Baking Company was out there. Yeah,
the good
back
days,
in the day.
the good old days. Oh man, that was awesome. I love those guys.
Yeah, and then also when we didn't even know. I think that was a Wednesday night market. I think it still is. And we were every Wednesday evening, it seemed like it rained in the summer. So like every week we're like, please just have the market. But I remember sipping it and thinking, this is something that is as complex as a really good cocktail. It's not just sour.
And, it's not just sweet, it's not just vinegary. It's not just bracing. It has a lot of different layers to it. And now
Yes.
chatting with you, that's exactly what I was tasting, your background, your history, and, your palate. So
Yeah. Certified Som, and really, I went to hotel and restaurant management school out in Texas. I fell in love with food and wine. I mean, I had to be like 14, 15 years old washing dishes and working at an Italian place where an opera singer, Neil Zarelli, singing, having a blast. And I mean, eating and drinking it's just such a fun event. And to find a healthy beverage like kombucha and be able to make something that's non-alcoholic and extremely good for you as well as complex was just a dream boat for me. I fell in love with it immediately.
now, where did you grow up? Where were you washing dishes at 14 or 15?
Charlotte, North Carolina, on the south side, a little town, Pineville, over on that side of town. But there was Neil Zarelli, and I think like every person that worked there was Italian or Sicilian, and it was just the best food ever. And he would sing towards the end of the evening, and it was just a riot. And that's when I was like, this is it. This is what life is about. Let's sit down and eat and drink and have a great time, and just feel good about it the next day. I mean, even after 3-4 bottles of wine.
Well, and I can tell in your voice that enthusiasm is still there. I think those of us that have been in food and beverage, we either become lifers or we never want to do it again. We become really cynical. Even just thinking about the adventure of you being able to go and work in St. John. I know a lot of people from Charleston. There's a big St. John connection. Did you work at the Longboard by chance?
Yeah, I helped Clint open that, but I went out there working for a master sommelier out of New York. Michael Skurnick he owned a Fatty Crab out there.
Oh,
and,
okay.
So I went out there after I think we had done a portfolio tasting a year or two before I left, and I did help open Stars rooftop, and it was great, the 50 wines on tap and everything, but King Street was a hot mess. So after about 2 years.
Was a hot mess? Right.
Man, I had never, at that age, I mean, you're creeping up in your 30s and it's like, whoo, I'm watching the sunrise and it's like, no, man, I gotta take a break.
Right.
So I touched base with Michael and he gave me a job as the general manager at Fatty Crab in St. John in the USVI. Then my boy Clint came out there, and we had worked across the street from each other. He owned Squeeze, and I was the operating partner over at Social Wine Bar.
Yep. So I've spent many a night at Social Wine Bar. It was really, really great. It was such a fun place. It was an amazing place, but.
So it's so brilliant. So many good memories, and awesome.
I know we have to talk about it at least once a year, right? And go oh, it was so great. But
yeah, man,
but
Hall
anyway.
and Oates happy hours, $3 pizzas. I mean,
come on.
Yeah. It was a great time.
Yeah. It was my second office for a brief period. So, but I also couldn't hang like that now. It's different. But
yet another reason I got into kombucha was I can't drink anymore. This is too much anxiety. This is a hangover just killing me. And,
right.
Kombucha seemed like a good place to go.
So my favorite flavor is the one that to me just takes the cake, and I think it's called Be Well, and it's the one with honey, and I believe it also has jasmine in it. And can you talk a little bit about that seasonal one, since it is my favorite, and I can ask specific questions on my show?
Yeah, of course. This is cinchona bark. It, it's used in tonics, things of the sort, but it kind of
Mhm.
dries up that honey a little bit, almost like
Yes.
I lean towards like a Drambuie when I think of Be Well tonic. So I don't know. That probably doesn't help anyone in maybe like 5% of people would be like, yeah, I get it. Um, but the bright kind of like hay kind of color or kind of tasting of brighter colors and just fresh floral notes,
Mhm.
jasmines, orange blossom. But again, the bark or the cinchona really just drying it up and giving it an earthy component or an
It
earthy flavor
anchors it.
profile.
It really
It,
anchors it, right? Because
yes,
I love
indeed.
things with flowers. I love stuff with flowers. I like to cook with jasmine and lavender and all that, but it can get too much
Oh, it
after
can get
making.
too much real quick. The floral components, the spices, everything. It can become overwhelming. Like the nutmegs and cloves. I mean, literally, if you put more than five cloves into this 50-gallon batch, cloves dominating the whole product. So it's kind of a tedious. I don't know how many recipes I've got written down, but I do know that I take a handful of cloves and count out five of them, and the cinchona bark can dry it out and almost make it taste or kind of make it an astringent kind of quality. So,
Mhm.
um, using the perfect wildflower honey. Um, and that's what the culture feeds on. So that's why they call it June or
Mhm.
whatever, however you want to say it really. But
Mhm.
it's a kombucha, but the culture only eats green tea and honey, if that makes sense. Where
It does.
kombucha eats black and green tea and sugar, where June
Gotcha.
is kind of like the champagne of kombucha.
Well, of course, I would like that one. That's just the
There
one I
you
like.
go.
You made this decision to make kombucha, to make it professionally. When did you talk to me a little bit about that decision to make it into a business? Because that kind of occurs in steps, right? You kind of have that first flush and then you're like, oh my God, this is hard. And then that next step. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, indeed. It was on the islands, and Clint Gaskins with Longboard allowed me to start producing kegs for Longboard, and the passion behind it. It was kombucha was just like just a canvas that was just holding. There was a lot of hibiscus, there was just lemongrass and mangoes, and it was almost like whatever I put into these batches of kombucha it was holding that flavor profile and actually preserving it. And that's where it started to become like a Bob Ross moment, like where it was like, oh man, I'm gonna try to put this in there and see if I can taste it. And
Mm-hmm.
before you know it, it was the kombucha in itself, the raw kombucha was just a canvas for me to add things to. So it really struck a creative note. Then the health factors. Literally, I probably was drinking like a pirate at that point in my life, and for some reason, the tartness maybe or the acidity, pH, the gluconic or glucuronic acids, it's the same thing that your liver is producing to cleanse your body. It it flushed or it made me almost like a little bit more open my eyes a little bit, and all of a sudden alcohol started tasting really sugary and really like smelled like molasses, and I couldn't stand it. So maybe it was just changing my palate, or maybe it was just the the universe in your stomach down there, that biome that it activated something, and I really kind of cut back on the drinking, and it felt really healthy. And
Mm-hmm.
then Charleston started kind of really, I started seeing clearly that being the only sustainable place in North America to do it was basically my second home, Charleston. I started making up my mind to come back to Charleston and do something completely opposite of stars, and just something really healthy and locally driven, and
no meanness on stars, but it's not really a healthy decision.
No, yeah,
stars isn't really a healthy decision.
Yeah, the amount of Grand Marnier and the rooftop, it was
Red Bull vodkas.
Yeah, that's much. So, it was, I guess, just the age, the creativity, the level of creativity that it allowed me to have with the beverage, being able to, to engage different flavors and be able to preserve them. I just started making them in larger and larger and larger batches, which started with, the longboard. And, now, after spending about 2 years in the Canberra guys let me use their warehouse
because they're awesome.
I got on my feet. Yeah, they're great. A really funny story about that is that when Brandon was at the gin joint, Mick was over there at Belmont. They needed a kitchen to get through DHEC, and they used Social Wine Bar. They came to me and asked if they could use Social. So about 7-8 years later, I come back from the USVI, and I asked them if I could use their facility, and of course it was good karma, and it all worked out. And now, I've renovated my own place, and trying to do an aluminum or a can, bought a canning machine. Now I just make like big tequila batches for 4th of July. I don't even know if that's legal, if I should be saying that, but the canning machine, it's just like a bartender going wild. I freak out in this little warehouse all the time.
And where can people find this, beyond, my fact that I can call you on the cell phone and say, hey, I need some of this. And I know other little spots in Charleston. Are you distributed outside the state, or are you still keeping it small for now?
I have a pretty good path that I've started running all the way to Greenville, Asheville, Charlotte, Spartanburg, Columbia, Myrtle Beach, all the way down to Savannah, and anything in between, Aiken, Beaumont. So I would say Charlotte to Savannah, I'm up and running. I have a refrigerated van and, some neighbors that occasionally will help me dry product around. So
love it, Zach.
That's how that goes.
Well, I mean, this is a creative journey, and it sounds like you're definitely not anywhere near finishing, more like you're just getting started. Even though you've been doing this for a long time, you're definitely still really fired up about it. A canning machine is a genius move. So what is making you hungry now? What's making you hungry? What are you interested in doing next?
I mean, like you said, I feel like I haven't even launched, to be honest with you. I just got out of the Canberra facility, and it seems like it's just been years of research and development, but an extreme amount of fun. But, as you start to calculate the moves, and the canning machine gets my production to a point, it takes a while to get cultures to produce a lot of the gallons, the volume that you need to go into a Whole Foods or Fresh Market. And so it just took me a while. And now it's like, I guess the fear of failing to launch. I mean, I want this product to be the best in the Southeast. I don't necessarily want to go to California. I don't want a large carbon footprint, but I do want to try to change the tea culture of the South from that the diabetic sweet tea, the Bojangles 64-gallon sweet tea that you can't feel your toes after you drink.
That is true, but Bojangles, I still love you, and you can call me for sponsorship anytime.
Yeah, I'm not hating on any of these places that I'm like, man, it was just like one of those things that you did for so long.
Yeah, I'm not really hating on anybody, but I'm not super into stars. I'm not gonna lie. It's not a shocker that it's not my go-to spot, like, whew, yeah.
You will catch me occasionally grabbing a biscuit from Bojangles.
Cajun filet.
I can't let it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't let it go, man. And on these long drives, it's like I'm getting a ham biscuit today. It's a dirty, dirty treat. It's so good.
I know. Well, the Charlotte in you got to get it because that's where they came from. I know. I'm a Charlotte girl.
Oh, yeah.
So I get it. What is one aspect of this job that really meshes with an aspect of your personality?
I would say the freedom part of it. Working in restaurants, it really kind of has. I stay up late, but at the same time, I mean, I can get up and running. Working with this, the sun rising. But I love a good siesta, a good nap in the middle of the day. I'm a strong napper, but, so the freedom of the hours, the ability to create, but definitely working with the local farmers that, some of these people are just, I mean, generation after generation, just reaping what you sow. I mean, there's just so many, life lessons, the principles of this journey that I think you just learn from growing things. And, I guess at the end of the day, me trying to grow a company, is very interdependent upon how great the farmers are around this area.
What keeps you up at night?
Man, I think that's when like the flavors, the creativity comes to me. I'll have some kind of weird dream and it'll be like, boom, there it is. I'm going to make something with borage today. I don't know. It just sporadic, just loving what I do. Kind of like every day is a child's Christmas
And are you the only person
know.
that works on this? Do you enlist other help at certain times besides the neighbors driving it for you, delivering it?
I do. I work with people that I can call and that come and help, or that have found the passion and love to sell the product. But for the most part, I mean, fermenting kombucha, it's 2 weeks of watching it ferment. So it's like, it's an open air, just, process of fermentation. So outside of just the 2 weeks of canning per month, and the deliveries, I don't need too much help at the moment. I mean, maybe if we get bigger.
The SCOBY kind of does its own thing, does its own work. So, and it's working away.
Yeah, she's independent.
Yeah. Does she? What's her name?
Yeah,
what's her name?
I'm a big Beyonce, Tina Turner, Whitney Houston, and I think I named one Bear Trap for some reason. Beaver Dam and Bear Trap, and then the others are Tina and Beyonce.
Nice, good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's what's up.
So I grew up in Charlotte. I've been to St. John, and of course I live in Charleston.
Nice.
So I'm familiar with
what part of Charlotte?
The university area. So I grew up.
Okay, north side girl.
So, but my sister actually lives in Monroe, so really close to like all that part of town where you were talking about. So
yeah,
it's a big city. It's a sprawled out city. But that being said, I have something that a lot of Charlotteans don't. Actually, I don't even know if anybody else in the world has this, but I do. I have a magic picnic basket, and I can also time travel with it. So I can go back in time to get a specific dish, meal. I can conscript any chef or cook to make anything that you want. I can source all over the world with my magic picnic basket, and I can bake a little bit. So if I'm going to bring you a dream meal, what's going to be in that basket?
Oh my. One thing that I would love to eat again and just sit down on the afternoon, especially with a picnic. It'd be Sophia, my grandmother's chicken and dumplings.
Did she do the round drop dumplings or did she do the cut strands of dumplings?
Cut strands, and it was an entire day every Sunday after church. The chicken and dumplings that we would it would take an entire afternoon of preparation, and it was just a great time.
That's perfect. And anything else to go with it, or just as much as you can eat of that?
I guess that would, of course, I could probably say anything that Chef Stanhope puts together over at Fig. I'm really, I just love to eat.
Yeah.
So it's,
that's good.
I'm wide open.
Well, good. Well, if people want to learn more about Zach and his amazing kombucha, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have images there of the face behind the voice. You're also going to see a link so you can click on it to learn more about all of the different flavors and a little bit of the background. This is just a very particular artisanal product. It doesn't have a big reach all over the country, but it is something worth noting if you're in the Carolinas or in Savannah to look for, because it is one of the most refreshing summer beverages you can find out there. And it won't make you feel like you're drinking like a pirate, right, Zach?
Indeed. It will cure the hangover as well.
Well, I don't know. We're not medical doctors here at the Southern Fork, but, if the pirate from St. John says that it'll cure a hangover, I'm going to go with that. So if you like what you hear, on the Southern Fork, I love doing this show because it covers all aspects of the Southern culinary culture and its nuances. So Zach, thanks for working with me today and chatting via phone instead of in person.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and everybody be well.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. I've been noticing a lot of you out there really doing the puzzles, those jigsaw puzzles. And I have a connection with you because I like puzzles too, but I don't necessarily like sitting down and doing jigsaw puzzles, but I like putting together the puzzle of an article or figuring things out. And really, this is a roundabout way to answer a listener question, which I received recently, which is, how do you choose your guests? Well, it's definitely a personally curated show, so it connects to me, my travels, obviously. Since I'm based in Charleston, there's a lot here, but it all comes back to that puzzle. So that's really, going back and listening to my interview today with Zach, it really is about that idea of figuring something out. And I was really captured by how good the kombucha was and how complicated it was. And I can taste that complication, and it's not a bad thing. That actually makes it super enjoyable, super interesting to me. It kind of makes me think as well as just tastes good. So I wanted to figure out how somebody figured out how to do that. So in a way, it's my puzzle. And Zach really just took apart the idea of kombucha once he figured out that's what he was making. And he started to look at each puzzle piece, each element of it, each flavor profiles. And then he's looking at the label and he's getting stuff in a can. So there's definitely a puzzle aspect to the culinary realm. And I wanted to mention that today because I think playing with puzzles and seeing it as play is a really good way to think about bringing creativity into any aspect of your life. If you break it apart and try to figure out, why do I do this? How do I like this? Whether it's planting a garden or reorganizing your desk. So anyway, I think we all like puzzles a lot more than we realize. So stay cool out there. It's a hot, long summer. You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you gonna eat all that?